Hello, everyone. This is Alchemical Transmissions. Thank you for being here. And today we're going to be talking about the energy update for January and the beginning of the new year. These messages are channeled from my higher self and my guides. I try to bring through messages that resonate the most with the people who tune in and of the larger collective that is on the current ascension path. So, the first thing coming through for this month is I'm getting the feeling that there's going to be a lot of new beginnings and fresh starts to projects you've been focused on. And this is sort of translating to me as the energy of an acceleration in regards to purpose. The vision that was actually coming through was a train on a train track, like the old school trains. When they'd start to get going, you hear that kind of chug, and you see the wheels or whatever they're called on the bottom starting to slowly turn, and then they kind of speed up and get momentum. That came through to me, and I think it's sort of a representation of the energy that a lot of us are going to be experiencing this month, which is fitting for the new year, but it's the energy of acceleration of something that we've been working on or we have already become in line with, that we've wanted to get going, and maybe some healing has had to happen beforehand, but now this month it's going to start that kind of chugging process. Something else that came through as well was that a lot more light is starting to anchor in, and I'm getting this is happening through all aspects of our life, but especially our light bodies. And I also feel that there's going to be a large shift in a power dynamic between the lightness and darkness that's currently going on in the world. I'm getting that the darkness is going to be, this has already been happening for a while, but it's going to take large leaps in terms of it being absolved by the light. As more light workers anchor in these higher frequencies, the darker forces that are currently operating behind the scenes in our reality are starting to dissolve, really, and return to oneness. And as we anchor in more of that light, it accelerates that process as well. I've been really seeing this as our Merkaba light bodies expanding and growing, and not in the sense that they're growing in size, but that there's like this, it's more of a materialization of those light bodies. Like it's as more light is anchored in, I was seeing it almost as like a weaving process, like a strengthening. I was also seeing this as more DNA activations coming through. That's going to go hand in hand with the Merkaba expansion. And what this is really doing is it's moving us towards aligning with our 12-dimensional Christos self, which is the manifestation of our higher self. So I've been getting that there's also a large shift in the collective. There is going to be a larger scale of a coming together between lightworkers and soul family. I was seeing this happening as more step into their purpose and their light bodies go through that expansion that I was talking about, and those DNA updates and activations. So how I was seeing this is that the collective isn't going to be in as much of a fragile state. And what I mean by that is that they can't be deterred as easily. So normal things that would have been lower vibration and not in alignment with your true self might have easily thrown you off your path before, and those same things aren't going to be able to do that anymore, or they're going to be at a much lesser degree, and you're going to be able to get back on track a lot easier. I also saw that this means that the portion of the collective that has been in a secluded and solitude state and enduring that sort of spiritual loneliness that happens so often when people start this ascension path, that we're moving out of that. Part of the reason that people go kind of into that shell and into that sort of transformational chrysalis process is for protection, because that transformative process can feel very fragile, and like I said before, things that aren't in alignment with you can completely throw you off, including people, situations, workplaces, anything like that. They can put you so out of sorts that it feels unbearable to even put yourself in those situations. So oftentimes people on this journey will resort to seclusion, but that is shifting, especially in this month. I'm getting that there is a progression towards inner peace. There's a coming to peace with your situation, with your decisions, and especially who you are. Many people on a spiritual journey are often sensitive souls, and this can often lead them to being hypercritical of themselves, and it can lead to them being much more judgmental of themselves than others, and often we can be much less kind to ourselves than we would be to others. So I'm getting that there's going to be some kind of form of reconciliation with yourself when it comes to that. There's going to be a kindness that you look at yourself with now. There's going to be a deeper appreciation of who you are and a deeper respect. It's going to be important to look into other lifetimes this month where incongruencies are presented. One thing that I see happen often is people might not notice that their pain trauma isn't necessarily coming from this lifetime. Many times when people are stuck with things that they can't explain, maybe why they feel so fearful or shameful or anxious or anything that isn't in alignment with yourself, that trauma can actually be coming from other lifetimes, which is why it's incredibly hard to pinpoint where it may come from in this lifetime. And it's going to be important this month, as those types of feelings come up, to look at it in that new lens and that new perspective of maybe this pain is from somewhere else and it needs that love and that compassion to be felt and transmuted properly. This will help with the integration of your full, authentic higher self, as these emotions can sometimes cause blockages in the energetic space, which make it difficult for you to bring through higher vibrations and your higher authentic truth. Something else that came through was that the child self knows the way, and that this month you want to be aligning as much as you can with the version of you who knows. That was the message, and as I was focusing on this, the vision I was getting was of a younger version of yourself that didn't have any sort of inhibitions to their freedom of expression, and that it was just coming through in such a playful, authentic, heartfelt way, and that it was coming through the heart space, and there was no mind chatter, there was nothing sort of blocking that stream of light coming through. That's where I think that message came from, of the version of you who knows. And it's really about learning to act from the heart space and bringing your attention inwards for answers. What you'll notice as well is that when you align with this version of yourself, it's going to naturally bring through healing, because it's naturally going to bring up those emotions I was talking about before that could be blocked in your energetic space. Because when you focus on that version of yourself and that light's coming through, it's going to really shine light on the aspects of yourself that are in pain and those emotions that need to be resolved, and the parts of yourself that want to be heard and healed and integrated. This version of you acts in authenticity without trauma inhibiting truth, and it's going to be important to express that this month. And doing so is going to anchor in those higher frequencies, and it's also going to be where these new beginnings and these fresh starts come from. It's from that energy. So it's going to be important to make sure you step into this heart space before taking action on anything this month. And this kind of ties into another thing that came through, which was that your intuition may be becoming much clearer this month. And what this will look like, I'm a very logical person, and when I'm presented with stuff that is my intuition kind of making things very clear for me. A lot of times it's hard to recognize it as the right decision at the time because you just don't know, and you kind of, the mental space comes in and it's kind of like, oh, well, what if you're wrong? Why should you do this thing when you have no proof that it could be right for you? And that's what you're going to be able to see much clearer this month, is that separation between the mental energy and the heart energy when it comes to taking action. This doesn't mean that it's going to be easier to make those decisions. I guess in a sense it will be, but there's still going to be that back and forth if you struggle with that. But you will be able to see the differences much better. You're going to know which one is the heart space choice and which one is the logical mental energy choice. It's going to become harder to ignore. It will be harder to ignore the difference between heart advice and the logical course of action. So this last message is for twin flames, if that journey pertains to you. So what I've been getting on this front is that the masculine isn't in the best place. They are enduring a transformative time at the moment. They are experiencing a resurgence of themselves that is leaving them feeling extremely vulnerable, and they don't like it. They feel extremely alone, and this is a necessary growth period for their advancement. That was coming through fairly clear. And I was seeing this as sort of a building of a stronger spiritual basis for their 3D lives. I was feeling large amounts of dread, very dark energy surrounding them at this time. And what I was feeling is that they're barely able to function in their old lives if they're continuing these patterns. And it's the energy of barely holding on by a thread. So there is sort of that energy of not wanting to let go of their old life, but kind of being pushed into this spiritual process. And there's a lot of fear of losing what they have. There's a lot of fear that they're losing everything that they've worked for and have seen as sort of a representation of themselves in their 3D world. However, this is a very transformative process. It's a very important process for their journey, and it is a conscious decision made by them. It's something that they've chosen to undergo, and if they have been postponing kind of taking that leap off towards a more spiritual, and if they've been postponing if they've been postponing going inwards and aligning with themselves spiritually, this process is going to be much harder for them. And the best thing I can say to the feminines is that holding love and support for them at this time is helpful, but it is also important not to intervene too much if you're not called to, because this is also a process of discovery and an advancement for them. It's almost if someone's making the journey into adulthood, you wouldn't want to hold their hand too much because they would feel like they weren't actually the ones doing it and that they weren't capable of it. So it's important to hold energetic love and support as much as you can, but to not intervene in what they're trying to accomplish too much. Assisting them too much could be disempowering to their self-confidence, and holding compassion for them while they go inwards through this crucible of emotional turmoil is important. The last little thing that came through as we close out this energy update is the more that you can step into these processes, the more you can facilitate alignment with self. I hope you all enjoyed the messages today. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you guys next time. Take care.